You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and Jon. When was the last time you watched an Alien film, by the way?
Oh man. I think I rewatched Alien probably with Dean, or like with one of the watch parties that they have.
Yeah.
On the LSG. Probably either that or it was Alien Promethean or Prometheus or whatever.
Now that's a movie. Yeah. I'm in the minority and I know it. I actually enjoy it. Call me crazy. I know it's got its problems. I'm not blind. Yeah. I'm fairly coherent and witty when it comes to film discussion and criticism. I've got very high standards, but I think my love for the Alien franchise probably overshadows my distaste for whatever's in Prometheus. I think Ridley did an all right job.
I think it was fine. I've only honestly seen it once, and maybe it's worth a rewatch.
I think so.
But like the I do remember the mood and the environment and the cinematography was always pretty spot on for that movie.
That I will say, I saw that was at the height of the 3D craze, and I'm like, I hate the 3D craze, but I got to see this movie in 3D. I just know it. It's fucking Ridley Scott. This man knows how to shoot a scene, right? So I'm like, I have to see it in 3D. So I went, I think it was around my birthday. Maybe not. Maybe I'm misremembering when that came out. But that there's a scene where the engineer gets in his ship. Or no. It's David, the android. They're in the ship and he hits some buttons and the constellation just blows up inside the room and it filled the fucking theater. I was like, this is amazing. That was probably the scene I remember the most. So that probably skewed my opinion. Bumped it up a couple notches just for that. But no, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. And I know there are a lot of Alien purists out there, which I did not know until, I want to say, after that movie came out. I didn't realize there were so many people who were against the idea that the aliens are like bugs, because James Cameron's second movie very much had like this ant beehive hierarchy thing going on where the queen is directing everything and she's laying eggs. And apparently and I saw the deleted scene, but I didn't really piece it together in the original Alien. Towards the end of the movie, Ripley's by herself. Everyone's been killed. She has her flamethrower and she goes down into the bowels of the Nostromo. And there's this deleted scene where she actually comes across Dallas and he's cocooned. Yeah. And he's slowly being killed by whatever,
Yeah.
Alien goo. And then there's a shot of Brett, the first real alien kill aside from Kane when the alien came out of him.
Yeah.
And he's like being dissolved into what looks like an egg. Like he's melting into, I don't know if that's actually
like
what's
they're making
happening.
them into nutrient paste.
Kind of.
They're making
like he's becoming this, like that's part of the cycle. And I don't know if that's what they were actually going for, or if that's just what it looks like. But there is like this pod-like element to the base of him. And it looks like it could be turning into an egg. And there are some purists out there that are like, the whole bug thing's just garbage and I fucking hate it. And there are people like me who are like, this fucking series is amazing. Just
that's funny.
I feel like a goon just liking everything for no reason. But no, but I think the last time I rewatched everything was probably a couple months ago. I'm a huge fan of this series, and I'm going to out myself right now, ladies and gentlemen, and say that the assembly cut 2003 special edition release of Alien 3 is my favorite Alien film.
Uh-oh. You're going to get a lot of people mad.
Of the 4 people that listen to our show, 3 of them are going to hate what I just said. Real
pissed off.
So
Alien 3 is one I haven't watched in a long time.
Don't. Just go find yourself the assembly cut.
Yeah.
Is
that a fan cut?
No. It is the special edition. They released the quadrilogy in 2003. It has both the theatrical and extended versions of each film. Yeah. Alien, the extended scenes are put in by Ridley Scott himself, and Aliens was the original version that James Cameron wanted us to see. But at the time, we were lowly theater goers who couldn't handle a 3-hour movie. So,
of course. Yeah.
So the studio axed that one. So he put all those scenes back in, and it's substantially longer.
Yeah.
And then Alien 3. Oh boy. It is a completely different movie. It is.
Oh, really?
I loved Alien 3 as a kid because I'm a movie monster guy. I've always loved monsters in movies and just how they work, how they move, how they look. So Alien 3 was probably my favorite outside of the Queen Alien and Aliens because they showed much more of the xenomorph in Alien 3.
Yeah.
So I liked it on that level. I liked the movie. I was fucking 7 years old. I shouldn't have seen it, I guess, but I did.
Yeah, probably not.
And but I loved it. And then when the assembly cut came out, so good.
That turns into an actually good movie.
It's actually good. And the theatrical version, I went back and watched that, and holy shit.
Yeah.
Not great.
Not so good. So I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I highly recommend it because I view it as Fox's official apology for not letting David Fincher do his work and just stepping on him every step of the way. He quit. He quit in the post-production of that movie, so he never actually finished it.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Fuck them. David Fincher knew what he was doing. But I mean, that brings us to today's soundtrack, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a soundtrack for Alien 3 for the Super Nintendo by English composer Steve Collett. He has many titles to his credit, including Mortal Kombat 2 for Game Boy, Stargate for Genesis, and Terminator 2 Judgment Day for the SNES. He seems to, from what I can see, have had steady work throughout his career. The last thing I see his name attached to in some capacity is Murder by Numbers in 2020.
Murder by Numbers? What's that?
I don't know. Sounds pretty basic for everything else he's been attached to.
For everything else, yeah. Like large movie adaptations.
Right. He has a company, Lowrider Sound, with which he works pretty steadily. So, Collett used various drivers and samples for the different systems he worked on, and for SNES specifically, I do have a quote from VGMPF.com, which is the Video Game Music Preservation Foundation, which states, I designed a custom sound driver with a programmer. It converted MIDI files, then allowed you to patch sound banks to match the program changes in the MIDI files. I'd prepare the loops in some Amiga sound editing tool I can't remember the name of. I used to extract loops from W32. I remember every time I'd make even one note change, I'd have to rebuild the whole thing, and that would take a few minutes each time. It really was time consuming for the SNES. It only had 64K RAM. That was for the sound driver, MIDI files, and level-specific instruments and SFX samples. So no wonder the sound quality was dodgy sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve. I mean, I chose that quote because it's interesting insight, if only brief, into the writing and sometimes painstaking lengths these composers would have to go through to just create a soundtrack for a simple little game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine you're a composer who, maybe you've worked with, in real life instruments. There's no memory cap on how much you can play a trumpet, but when you're talking about you get 64K, this is what you get.
This is all my ear can handle right now.
Well, yeah, maybe there's a little buffer overflow on a trumpet, but But like just having to like compress everything and be so very careful about the instruments that you're putting in. They have to be meaningful. That's one of the great things about the chiptunes era and the SNES and the NES and all that. The albums that really speak to you and are just phenomenal are phenomenal in spite of the
limitations,
insane restrictions. Yeah.
And
crazy.
That's what has always filled my heart with joy, to be really corny about it. But as much as I love real instruments and full orchestras and the fucking Lord of the Rings soundtrack, it's so good and it's so beautiful to listen to. But what really gets me is those limitations, are those limitations that composers had to work around to get what they were envisioning for a game onto recording and pump it through this system that could only do so much. That's what touches me, ever since I was a kid. And it's so many other people who have grown up with these songs, and they sound at times very primitive and basic, but they're just the talent behind it, I think, is what really catches me. And I really very much enjoy just the effort they put into it and making something that sounds very basic come out very nice and very beautiful and interesting to listen to. So chiptunes will always have a very big place in my heart just because of what it takes to go through it. And
yeah, for sure.
Gone are the days of that. to put it easy. We talked to Frank Klepacki a little bit, and he talked about recording one thing on one tape and moving stuff over to another tape. And even in this quote I just read, it talks about all these hoops he had to jump through to get the sound he wanted for this little game that no one really likes. But
well, you like it.
I like it. So
I never played it, so.
Well, onto the game, I think quick preamble, this was back in the day when movies would just kind of willy-nilly license out their products to different companies to create video games, toys, books, whatever. And people would just generally, the board meeting is just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. That's usually how it goes. One thing I can remember that, have you ever seen the show, The Toys That Made Us on Netflix?
I've seen I haven't watched it.
Okay, well, there's a Star Trek episode that talks about all the bullshit licensing they used to do for their toys. And there's that helmet with the light, the siren light that people would wear. I'm like, that's the shit people would come up with to promote a TV show that's got nothing to do with that.
Just slap a sticker on it.
Yeah, just slap a Star Trek sticker on it, and goddamn it, it's a Star Trek toy. But this is kind of that same idea where, while they definitely tried with this game, I'm not throwing shade at this game at all. I really enjoy it. But this is still the era of that. There are plenty of games where let's just throw the ET logo on it, and hopefully our Atari playing community will not notice that it's not very good. But we're getting out of that in the mid 90s. So, like the film itself, most of the games about Alien 3 were not received well. As I stated earlier, I think the assembly cut of Alien 3 is the best version of this movie. And like that, the Super Nintendo version of this game is, in fact, the best. I think it's got the best reviews. Most people enjoy it. And I think it's actually a really fun game still. I picked it up a month or so ago. I don't tell anyone, but I played it on my Steam Deck through possibly not legal means. I don't know, but I own it. All right. I own it for the Super Nintendo. Anyway, I say all that to then say appropriately, this game has multiple different versions, just like the film. I don't know if that was poetic or not, but this one is a very fun game for me, and it is a run and gun style platformer. You play as our heroine, Ellen Ripley, as you traverse the dark, musty concrete and steel foundry of Fiorina 161 to perform various tasks. Now, unlike the film, there are a cajillion aliens in this game, and you have all the weapons that we saw in Aliens, like the flamethrower, and let me see if I can get this right. An M41A pulse rifle 10mm with an over and under 30mm pump action grenade launcher. Feel the weight, John. Feel the weight.
Wow. Yeah. Over and under.
Over and
Why
under.
do you need both?
I don't know. Just for double the pump action. I don't know.
Double the pleasure.
It's interesting to me that this game took a weird turn for platformers. And
yeah,
basically what I mean by that is it brought forth the notion of questing to me. Not that I had never played an RPG before. I had played several at this point. But because the premise of the game was that Ripley was simply keeping this place running and keeping the prisoners safe until eventually rescue teams would arrive, like the movie.
Yeah.
You have 6 levels with increasing difficulty, and each level has these terminals that act as your hub for whichever level you're on. They'll contain, 4 to 6 quests that you need to take care of. You'll be tasked with things like find and weld all the ruptured pipes in Medbay 4, Alien Corridor 3, and the Assembly Hall, or find and rescue the prisoners who have been taken and strung up like the aliens like to do. There are several quests that just range from those things to kill every egg in whatever sector you're in. So I think there's a lot of... It's just interesting to me, given the nature that RPGs have infiltrated every form of game out there. And this was kind of ahead of that.
You have that formula of fetch quests. I think one of the things that you get out of that is you can make more game out of the same space. Mm-hmm. You take a game like Super Metroid, where it is a vast map for the SNES at least. And if you can make, Norfair smaller, but also be able to have these fetch quests that still have gameplay that you go and do and come back and go and do something else. It really expands how much you can get out of a smaller footprint. So it in certain extent, it's a genius way of doing what we said about with the soundtrack of condensing your material so that it's more efficient.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't want to overstep here, but I think this may have been one of the first games to, not the first game, but like, it's a platformer. Up and down, it's a platformer. There is no experience. Yeah. You're not gaining levels. You're basically just trying to get through levels by completing these tasks. Basically, you complete them all, and then you're on to the next level. Same exact type of game, same areas. They're all very similar, but the levels do change. And I just thought it was interesting that there was so much element of that fetch questy type of thing going on here, and it's early 90s. So yeah. And it's weird to see for a platformer, at least for me.
Yeah.
So as for the soundtrack, I think it captures the mood of the game very well. It's dark and foreboding. It mixes that with the militaristic themes of the actual Aliens film itself, as in James Cameron's Aliens. There are a lot of I wouldn't say a lot. There are a couple nods to that soundtrack specifically, Aliens soundtrack. And I think Collett's sound here is very grungy. There's a power behind it and a rawness to that sound.
I was going to say it's an extremely raw. The instruments just sound so metallic and raw, and it is like a bare metal space station. Like it has that feeling. You're banging, the echoes are banging around, it definitely gives you that feeling of being in this space station for sure.
Yeah, and that could be the limitations of the chip, but I really don't think so. It feels like Collett crafted something that's very natural to the environment of what you're seeing and the situations you find yourself in. Like most games, the music is not reacting to anything on screen. It's just the same loop over and over as you play each level, a different song accompanying each level. So
yeah,
the soundtrack just has a lot of powerful percussion and guitars interspersed with just a little electronica to keep things pretty interesting. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into this one. What would your first song be, sir?
I picked Corridors of Fury 161. It just comes stomping in with this meaty bass synth and military beat. You get a semblance of a deep melody from those low synths along with tension building rising note. It's just kind of a fairly disjointed track, all things considered. Mm-hmm. It's just a frantic tone to it. But yeah, you have these random notes that have higher volumes that kind of catch you off guard. It's a very kind of industrial. I mean, the name of it kind of says it all. It's corridors of this it's foundry.
Fury 161 is the title of the facility she's located in the film.
And it has that meaty industrial machines are whirring around you at different paces and different volumes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, there's a real powerful snare drum that's kind of guiding that entire song. And it starts with that intensity and drive that's just in your face, but then immediately goes into this transition riff that builds up a little, and that pace seems to quicken. The bass gets to play in short little accents. I think towards the end of the song, it begins to ramp up little by little, and then the loop starts over at the perfect moment where all the instruments would naturally kind of cascade down. It just starts over. So it's really seamless, and I think Collett did a wonderful job. And also, shout out to the trademark alien noise of this game. It's dropped here and there in the song, it adds a fun little element.
That's funny.
I like it.
The is that?
Yeah, that weird noise that you'll hear. That's their alien type sound effect for.
I was wondering that. I was like, what? That sounds like an alien. It sounds like something that's like,
It's what he chose for the hint of alien in his songs. There are just a few songs with it, but yeah, he drops that here and there.
Ou de alien.
Ou de alien.
Well, what would you pick for your first track to kind of highlight here?
My first song is going to be Rescue Mission. I love this song. I think this one is the desperation in this song is palpable.
Yeah,
the intentions behind the song are just so clear. You're on that rescue mission, obviously, and the situation is just incredibly bleak and stressful. Those long strains of the main theme create a mood that brings Ripley to life as she runs through the tunnels and corridors of this foundry. And when the song takes that moment to shift from high to low in an almost reversal of the main theme, the song just gets deeper and more brooding.
You're falling into the corridors looking for whoever you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about the song is it just goes. It doesn't let up. But it's not a wall of sound, as I like to say here and there. It just knows what it is. And I want to add that the first measures of this song are one of those homages to aliens. After Bishop thinks he's rescuing Ripley and Hicks in a new dropship in the movie, she tells him there's been a change of plans and they have to go find Newt. And then when the camera cuts, he's flying the dropship. And these tones, these bombastic horn sections come in, accompanied by that machine gun snare. And the first notes of this song, I believe, are a direct draw from that. Not the exact same song, but very, very similar. And what Collett has done here is take elements of that song and craft his own song around it and make it his own. And I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, it's a, like you said, it's a very desperate and frantic track.
Mm-hmm.
Never stops. Has those minor tones. If you're listening to it with headphones, you have that in your right ear. You have that synth that kind of sounds like it's in a minor key. Then you have that melody that's kind of cutting through all of it with a higher tone. And then the way the backup strings come in and out at almost random, it kind of disorients you, and that lower sinister tone helps drive you further into wherever you're trying to find or rescue people.
Yeah. My favorite element about this song is just that driving force where you, like I said, there's no real lull in the song for me. It's very straightforward and it just pushes through everything. And the main melody that starts and stops the loop is just fun to listen to for me, because it just, man, as soon as you get a different feeling, that desperation comes back and everything just feels very deliberate, and I don't know, just it catches me for this song. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think for me, my one of the other tracks that I really enjoyed was "Destroy the Eggs." It's just kind of similar to Rescue Mission in that it is just pure panic at the start of the song. There are thousands of eggs and we got to destroy them. That's what it just feels like.
Yeah. This game, one of the liberties it takes, as I noted earlier, it has a lot of aliens in it. And as people may know, in Alien 3, there's only one. So that's a liberty they had to take. Obviously, they're not going to make an Alien 3 game with one alien.
So this is lame.
they took some liberties, and the queen is very much here somewhere, and she's laying eggs all over the place. So this song, it starts a little different than all the others. I would say there's a very hurried feel to it, and Ripley's mission is clear in this track.
Yeah, it just gives me the vibes of a song playing. It was part of it, like after the intro, it gives me the vibes of a song playing when you're on your last life or low on health.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Wait. Shit, I only have one hit left. Get me out of here.
You got no E-tanks left, and you're on 20% health.
This is where all those years of playing Contra, developing your hand-eye coordination come in.
That's right.
Where this music starts.
But after the intro, it comes in strong with the synth melody, that kind of sinister falling scale in the background. And again, the tone changes, and perhaps we found the eggs, and now we're destroying them. And then you have this militaristic melody plays before we go back to the beginning of the loop. It's a really interesting track.
Yeah. There's just elements to this that I really dig, which are the electronic beeps we hear in the background as the main theme just thunders away. And then the only other thing I want to mention about this song is there are these flutes that chime in during that very halted, crunchy section. that leads back into the beginning of the song. And the flute just adds a weird and very welcome flair to the song. It's unusual. I never expected to hear a flute, but
all of a sudden flute.
He made it work. And especially in such a rushed song, such a terrifying song. There's a lot of shit going down, and
you have those moments. It's very frantic and desperate, but there are a couple moments, especially with that falling flute, that it kind of slows down, and it's a really interesting track.
My next track is going to be Station Repairs. This one I chose because it is a little bit different than some of the other ones on this album. It's got this booming rhythm, and the percussion takes a bit of a backseat. There are hitting toms and snares at key moments instead of guiding the complete tempo, which I thought was interesting. There's a little less of your traditional percussion backbone to this song. So instead, the strings really get to drive everything, and the lead verse is comprised of single sustained notes, which feel very on brand with horror and fear, which is good.
Yeah.
As it goes on, the inclusion of noises that I can't place as instruments, but are definitely part of the song, they accent the track in very clever ways, which paint the picture of just wandering these tunnels in this foundry used for creating giant lead sheets. So we can imagine the rusty tools and machinery used.
It does have a very industrial feel.
Mm-hmm.
The alternating up and down notes seem like pistons or the inner workings of this station. The opening is just so bombastic. I love the opening. It's just dun 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 dun. It just really hits you in the face. And maybe it's like alluding to how big the station is or the task of repairing it is.
Yeah.
The change in the time signatures in the middle kind of threw me off. Not really something you kind of expect in a video game soundtrack, I think it goes from 4/4 to 3/4, like in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting.
It's fun when composers do that because it just throws you off when the listener thinks they know what's going on, and then they just flip the script a little bit. And oh, hey, this is a new change. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you can just imagine the rusty tools and machinery in this place, the clanking chains, and in a strange way, that sound effect that I was talking about just adds more depth and space to the song. And I'm a big depth guy, so it works for me.
Mike, he's a depth guy.
I'm a depth guy.
I think for my last one, I had to pick the Mother Alien. I love boss music. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. You're a depth guy. I'm a boss music guy. It's just the way it is. But yeah, right off the bat, you got this low-driven synth bass line, giving us a sense of danger of this Mother Alien. Then it comes in with a higher synth to play the hero, duking it out against the beast. The higher synth has these fits of minor chords. Maybe it's a tough fight. Maybe you're losing. Maybe you're winning. And at the end of the loop comes in a key change up. We're winning now. And then overall, it's just this up and down, back and forth. Overall, fast-paced track. It's just great boss music.
I like halfway through the intro melody, it just changes up to this kind of oscillating progression with a xylophone to add another neat element, like that flute. He's bringing in instruments that don't sound like they'd work in an Alien game, but they do. The culmination of the song, that climax, is the last bit, where the dark melody comes in. It rises and falls, driven by the idea of what you're facing, which is, of course, the Queen Alien. I do want to say, disappointingly, in the game, you never actually fight the Queen.
What?
No.
What?
You fight big...
Chekhov's Queen? Is this what this is?
No, it's an unfortunate thing. She's a part of the ending, but not a part of the actual game itself. One thing that's interesting to me is that Collett reuses this ending motif in this song for the final cutscene of the game, which includes the Queen. She gets lured and pushed into the lead mold, which is what they do to the alien in the movie, but it's not a queen. Yeah. So they basically just flipped that and made her this looming presence, I guess, that you always worried you were going to face, but you never actually got to. So that's a disappointing aspect of the game, but it's still fun. I enjoy the game, even if you can't play that or fight the alien queen.
Yeah, so. Well.
Oh, well.
Nothing's perfect,
Nothing's perfect.
Well, how about you for your last track here?
My last track is going to be Collect, Deliver, Steal. This is probably my favorite song on the album. It's aggressive, powerful, and sharp with that opening salvo of notes. As usual, the snare is clapping away. We imagine the battle going on with the Marines. Even if it doesn't apply here, the theme still works. Without question, the best part of this is the interlude before the loop starts over. It's the same melody, but there's added groove to it with a nice bass accent to kind of create a stopping point for every measure.
Yeah.
It's a very fun section, and it feels like the fight is in its definitive moment during that. So
yeah, it's a very powerful track. You really get a sense that you're on a mission. Has this like almost singular focus. The main melody just leading us on. But yeah, you had that kind of interlude before the loop is great. Yeah, definitely.
I just like how stilted it is, because with every time the notes stop for that half a beat, it's just really powerful. And I just like it when stuff goes in sync like that, when they accent the whole song with these moments that get powerful and short, and they're in your face, and then the song repeats itself or it builds upon itself with those. I really like those stings. So
yeah, they can lead to a lot of tension, especially if you're at the end of a loop. If your track is trying to build that tension and you don't want to release it just yet, you have the staccato kind of building you up and then continuing on through the loop. Yeah, it's a great way of kind of adding to that feeling of you're driving through this mission. There's stuff there. You're being harassed by aliens or facehuggers or whatever, and it's still this tension that kind of leads you on.
Yeah, I think overall this song has a very militaristic theme. I mean, I know that's peppered in throughout the entire album, but at the same time, this one's just like the firefight is happening. And this song, it just starts so powerfully, and I think it just stays that way the whole time. It's so strong and powerful. It's exciting to listen to, even for a Super Nintendo game. It gets your palms sweaty when you're playing the game if you're not paying attention.
I mean, going into the entire album itself, the instruments used and the the tracks themselves are pretty unlike any other SNES game that I've kind of come across.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, the way the kind of metallic, like you said, raw,
Mm-hmm.
almost militaristic sense of it is pretty unique. I find
Very much so. And I think that'll lead me into my final thoughts, where I think it's not a perfect album, but it sure is fun for me. Some of the instruments have a very stunted feeling. What I mean by that is, like, if he's using strings, obviously it's all done on keyboard for the most part. So the strings, you can tell when he presses the key on the synth and when he lets go. So there's not a smoothness to it like there are in other games. So that's what I mean when I say it's not perfect. But at the same time, I think he's crafting this soundtrack with love. And the reality is that Collett had a task in front of him, right? The film is a very different movie in tone than, or when you compare it to the first two.
Yeah.
Even Alien to Aliens, it's very different. So Aliens to Alien 3, I think it was an even bigger jump. And that includes the score. You know, Elliot Goldenthal, who scored the movie, it was very, very experimental and industrial. And while there are very beautiful orchestral compositions on the album, there are also a lot of metal objects, a lot of things we would just listen to and call noises. There's maybe one electric guitar in a momentary section, but even that didn't provide any real rhythm. It just sounded like someone in a coffee shop plugging in for a quick practice and then lets out a single strike on his electric guitar, and then it goes away. That's it. Right. That's so Goldenthal's soundtrack was very different as well. So what I say all that to say that there were themes from the score here that Collett could have used or could have built his soundtrack from, but he chose instead to create his own beast, I think, which is commendable. He made some nods to Aliens with the snare drums, that really militaristic, the opening measures in Rescue Mission, like I mentioned. And then most notably during the ending theme, there is a little flute in the end song of this game that matches the one when Ripley and Newt go back into cryosleep. You can hear that theme almost note for note in the ending of this game. So I would say Collett's themes really take on a life of their own and in a weird way capture the same feel of the game. So he had an ear for wanting to pay homage to the films, but also create something new. And to me, he bridged that gap between Aliens and Alien 3 because of this soundtrack. He managed to use those themes from the second movie and the third movie.
Yeah, I would say that probably the biggest drawback for this album for me was the fact that like you said, a lot of the maybe musicality, I don't know how to kind of say it, but the rawness of the instruments themselves and the fact that there's not a lot of vibrato, there's not a lot of kind of long notes or slurred notes or anything like that. It's all very staccato, it's very militaristic, and it's very raw and there may have it kind of grates on you a little bit throughout the entire album, and it might have been nice to have a couple tracks in there to soften the blow. But overall, as an impressive, you're in a station filled with aliens, and you need to do all these tasks in order to survive. It does its job very well, and it's a game I haven't played, but I can just kind of sense the type of game it is from the soundtrack itself.
Yeah. And I think you're very correct in that the soundtrack is not one that you're just going to necessarily throw on. Yeah. Not that you can't. I do have a couple songs on my Super Mega Game Hits playlist that I've got. So I do enjoy them, but at the same time, it's not this there are things that kind of take away from it, like the rawness, which it goes so far, and then there's an element to it that could have used some tweaking. So
yeah,
I agree with you on that. I just want to say that what I like about it, I'm just going to hit this one time and then I'll let it go, is that I just like that he melded the tones of Aliens, the movie, and melded it with the bleakness of Alien 3 to kind of create something unique for this game. I think it is unique. There are a lot of things that, well, actually, honestly, I don't think there's anything that sounds quite like the soundtrack for the Super Nintendo. I think it's very different. And I would give this an 8 out of 10 Bambi Bursters, which is the infant alien in this movie.
Yeah, I would have to say it's going to be probably a 7 out of 10 rounds left in your carbine rifle.
Okay.
Because I think some of the gradingness does take over on a long listen, but there are definitely tracks in here that are really neat to listen to for their own right. And as a soundtrack for a video game, specifically a video game about aliens, it does the job very well, and it's very unique. So
it just needed just a little bit more polish for me. And I think you're picking up on that too. So
yeah, sure.
Now, where to buy this album? I have not found it anywhere to purchase. So I'll just say this, as with a lot of albums we talk about, there are streaming options like YouTube. Steve Collett does have a UK LinkedIn profile, but I have I have to join to read it all. So I didn't do that, but of what I can read, this was something I found interesting. He has had the pleasure of recording at Mono Valley Studios, and he has toured with Motorhead. This is a man after my heart.
All right.
Because Lemmy is God. So yeah. We, of course, suggest that you guys visit Lowrider Sound. This is his studio. You can connect with him and see any projects that he is currently working on. But, yeah, as for the show, I think that is it today, John.
Nice.
So, we're going to giddy up on out of here, and we will see you guys next week with another killer soundtrack, I'm sure.
Game over, man.
Game over. Man.
What the fuck are we going to do now, man?
What the fuck are we supposed to do? Are you finished? Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple. We didn't.
Never mind. Try again.
Scratch that.
Check it out. Look it up.
John?
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say, we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.